Alright, making some progress on the Nutcracker. I've started on the main body of it, and I've went around, and since I'm going to be texturing this surface just with a light texture, as you can see, I've went around and masked all the metal banding areas all the way around and around the perimeter, and then some of the surfaces that I'd like to keep as just sheet metal or cold roll type steel, whatever. And then I went through with some mask all and did kind of put some here and there on the tape, and I did also put some over some of the location points for some of the future details that are added, so I can just find those again and not have to worry about adhesion problems and whatnot. Then I went through the model and I drilled out with a pin vise all of the handrail location holes, that the handrails and guards and D-rings and things like that go on here. They're all fairly fragile and small, and they just glue on. I went ahead and drilled all the holes out and simply just bent metal wire, and I've got some pieces in right now that I've been bending and testing, you know, like this stairwell here, but this is all just simple bent wire that pokes through the holes. And you know, after these are inserted, I'll go back and glue them and snip them down, but those will be removed. Of course, all this will be pulled out, you know, prior to doing the texturing work, and there's quite a few places. And I also drilled out a few other holes that were some locations for things. There's a hose which I replaced with guitar string to give it that cable look, and it'll be running down into another component here. I don't know if you can see that on me, but you can see here, this will be running down into a component here, and it'll have that cable look to it, and there's just some pieces of insulation on there. I also did the same thing with some of the lifting rings. You know, those will be inserted down to the base here, and then on some of the like on all these little ladders and things, these handrails, I will go back afterwards and I will add some just a dab of Mr. Dissolve putty around the base of them, and then try to give it just a little texture to make it look like a weld to where the piece is welded on. But that'll all be done after I do the texturing. I did go ahead and spruce up a few other kit parts as well. There's a series of grills that go around the perimeter. If I can pick it up, and get my tweezers. But there's some of these grills, 3 of them, that mount around the perimeter, and I went ahead and sanded these down. I don't know if you can see that. As you can see how they're hollowed out. They were solid, and I just sanded them down on my block until I got through to reveal the grill patterns, and to open them up just like you would do you could do on a car grill. So I took care of that on all of those, and by doing so, it removed a lot of material from the back. So when I install the part, like this one goes here. So when I install the part now, there's a hollow area beneath the part. So I could, if I decide to, you know, I could add some bits of wire and things back behind here, loop some wire, run some things kind of to show, that'll show through the grill if I decide to go that far with it. But it'll work out really nice with weathering and everything to have these open and above the surface, to give it a good indication of an open vents and things like that. There's this little antenna piece. I went ahead and took the styrene off of that and just added a wire in its place, and then I took some stretch sprue and glued and wrapped around it just to add a sort of a little strap holding that piece on there. What else did I kind of, this the main one of these main antennas, obviously it's it had very fragile wires coming out of it, or styrene. I replaced those with wire, and I did add a couple of just pieces of insulation as just for some added detail and whatnot. Another really common upgrade on this that most everybody will do is replacing this section with a piece of actual mesh. The part that comes in the kit is just a Grille simulation type piece that fits up in there. Well, it's a no-brainer just to cut some screen and glue the piece in. That adds a lot of detail right off the bat. So obviously I went ahead and did that myself as well. The turret's in the same shape. It's, you know, it's masked off, you know, the areas I don't want to texture. And then there are again, there's some mask all dots here and there of areas that have, these are just mounting positions, and this stuff will just erase right off with the with an eraser. So, and it'll expose the raw styrene underneath. It'll give me location and a good glue joint. So we're at that point where I've got my holes drilled and everything, and I can start doing the texturing. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to use the Mr. Surfacer 500 and go over the whole surface with that. Just applying it with a stipple brush, which I've got a set of those from Humbrol. And these are just real stiff stippling brushes, different sizes. And I'll be prodding it, just prodding it and putting it on. It's not going to be a really heavy textured surface. I just wanted a light texture to it, but that still kind of gave the indication of some cast iron or whatever. And I've already run some tests and put tape on it and tested and stippled, and then I went back over it even and did a light sanding just to knock the high little tips off to get it a little closer to that cast iron kind of look. But this thing's pretty, you know, this is actually a pretty large machine, so the texturing doesn't need to be really, you know, heavy. It does need to be kind of a lighter texture overall. But I think this will work. It's not necessary. It's not a must-do thing. I mean, who knows what type of metal they were using in the 20 whatever future that this is based in, but it'll add a little more to the weathering overall and everything, I think, to have just some of that texture to it. And it's just something I've always wanted to do, so I'm going to do it. But that's where I'm at. And so the next step is going to be dabbing on all that texture. I'll probably tape off a few more little things just so I don't get it on there. I can work myself around a lot of these details, but I'll probably put a little more tape on some things just so I don't have to worry so much about it. And that'll get me up to this point.